Welcome into One of One Sports. It is time to predict the last of the major college basketball conference tournaments. We did the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big East. So, of course, last up is the Big 10. Getting right into it, here's a look at the bracket. We can see it's a pretty sizable bracket. 15 teams in this bracket, which means 3 teams are left out. Washington did not qualify. Penn State did not qualify. And then, kind of shockingly, Nebraska didn't qualify, which is crazy because just like a week ago, they were in a game where if they had beaten Ohio State in a game that went to overtime and Nebraska easily could have won, they would have projected. They were projected to be in the NCAA tournament at the time. Now you go a week, maybe a week, or maybe it's been 2 weeks. I can't remember fully. Later, and they're not even making their conference tournament, let alone the NCAA tournament. So it's crazy how fast things can change in this sport. Starting off with the Minnesota Northwestern game. Minnesota the 12, Northwestern the 13. Northwestern has been, I think, playing better basketball recently, and Minnesota hasn't. I think they've been playing pretty much how they've been playing all year. I haven't seen them play in a while in this game. There's a reason it's 12 and 13. It's pretty evenly matched teams. I am going with Northwestern just because what I have seen from them recently, like what I saw them do to Ohio State not too long ago, did impress me enough to think they can pick up one win in their conference tournament. Coming down to the next game, though, Ohio State and Iowa. Iowa played pretty well in their last game of the season, leading against Michigan State, the 1 seed, for large portions of that game, like into the second half before it kind of unraveled for them. And so I do think they have the ability to win this game. But with Ohio State being right there on the bubble, I think there's a level of desperation to win at least one game in this tournament. And that extra motivation, coupled with being like a better team than Iowa throughout the season, makes me think Ohio State will get this win in advance to play Illinois. And then finally, we have USC and Rutgers. USC in the second half of the season has just been really poor. Like early on, it looked like maybe they could be a bubble team, and they've just looked really, really bad every time I've watched them play since then. Rutgers, they sometimes look like a good team. Other times, they look really bad and they're inconsistent. And I think that kind of comes with leaning on two freshmen. Yes, they're really talented freshmen, but they're really young players that you're leaning on to lead your team. Dylan Harper, though, is going to be the best player on the court. Unless Ace Bailey has a really good game, then he'll be the best player on the court. And I think there's too much talent for Rutgers to go out in round one of the Big Ten tournament. I think they defeat a USC team that's really been struggling. Coming back up top to Oregon, Indiana, these two teams just played in, I think, the second to last Saturday of college basketball, or maybe it was no, that was a week game. Sorry, but it was a really, really good game. Went down to the wire, and Oregon was able to win it. But Oregon now, I think, is projected as a 5 seed. Indiana, right there on the bubble, against Ohio State, showed a lot of fight. They beat Purdue recently. They look like a team that really wants to get into this NCAA tournament. And if they win this game, I think they're probably safe to get in. And you combine that the tournament is in Indiana, so there's a little bit of a home court for them with all this motivation against a team they're already evenly matched up with, or at least fairly evenly matched up with. I know Oregon's like a 5, Indiana might be out of the tournament, but you saw them play. They're really close teams. They finished 8th and ninth in the league. There's not that big of a gap between them. And when you add in the extra motivations that Indiana has, that a team like Oregon can be hard to find that level of energy that I think Indiana is going to come into this game with. So I'm going with the Hoosiers to advance to play the Michigan State Spartans. Then in second round, although Wisconsin has been struggling, losing to Penn State at the end of the year, someone else beat them as well. I'm forgetting. But they have definitely. I mean, Michigan State beat them. I know that, but that one you kind of expect. But they did look, because they were projected as like a 3 seed for a while. They haven't been playing up to that level. They were even a 2 seed at one point. So this is a team that is not playing at their best, but I do still think they're good enough to beat Northwestern, who's a team that, I mean, they finished towards the bottom of the conference, or basically only here off of tiebreakers. I think Wisconsin is good enough to get that game. Coming to the next game, Illinois and Ohio State. I like this Illinois team. The way they were playing against, like, they dominated Michigan. They beat Purdue. I think there's someone else they beat too. But like since that Duke game where they got blown out and they had a lot of players out, they've been playing really well. They've been shooting the ball. At least I haven't checked the statistics, but when I've seen them play, they take a lot of threes typically, but they're not great percentage wise. I think they've been shooting a little bit better on the threes while keeping that volume. I've seen Jaka Jonas been hitting some threes. Will Riley has been making shots, but he's also been getting to the basket. And I like the way the team's playing a lot, and I will pick them to beat Ohio State. Now to the last game of this second round of the Big Ten tournament. Like I said, Rutgers has a ton of talent, but they, in two probably top three, top four, maybe NBA draft picks in Bailey and Harper. But that also has led to inconsistency, and I don't think that's something that lends well to a tournament or a bracket style tournament. Purdue, meanwhile, yes, they lost to Illinois to end their year, but you have Braden Smith, who's one of the best players in the Big Ten, along with Kaufman Wren. Fletcher Loyer is a good player, and these are all veterans. They've been in this style tournament before. I trust them more versus the two talented freshmen of Rutgers. I'm going with Purdue to win this game. And now we head to the third round, back up top between the Spartans and the Hoosiers. And this is an easy pick for the Spartans for me. I mean, funnily enough, the last team to beat Michigan State was Indiana. So maybe that gives you something to think about. But since then, Michigan State has beaten Michigan twice, who's the 3 seed. They beat Maryland, who's the 2 seed. They beat Wisconsin, who's the 5 seed. They beat Purdue, who's the 6 seed. So they've beaten all the top teams aside from UCLA just since their last loss, which yes was to Indiana, but I think Michigan State has been playing a lot better than they were at that time. Meanwhile, Indiana, I think after the Oregon win, is going to be really excited, feeling like they've secured making the tournament. Not going to be as motivated, or like they're going to be motivated, but I don't think they're going to have that same like desperation after you get a big win against Oregon. And I do think Michigan State's just the better team and has been playing some of the best basketball out of anybody in the country. Give me the Spartans. And then the 4-5, this one's really a toss-up. Like UCLA has been a good team, but they haven't been great. Like you lost to Purdue, you beat Ohio State, and you beat USC. You beat the teams basically you're supposed to beat, and you've kind of lost to who you're supposed to lose to for the most part. I know early in the year you did beat Michigan State at home, but Michigan State I don't think was the same team then that they are now. And Wisconsin, I think it's been kind of similar, but a little bit more inconsistency. For example, losing that Penn State game. So this one's really one I could see either going either way. Wisconsin has the higher powered offense, which is weird to say under Greg Gard, but John Tonje, one of the best players in the Big Ten, and the offense has just been kind of revolutionized for Wisconsin this year. If it gets higher scoring, I do think that favors Wisconsin. I don't think it's going to be super high scoring, though, and I think that style will favor UCLA a little bit. And like I said, it's a toss-up. I'm just slightly leading the Bruins because Wisconsin didn't look great to end the year, and I think it could be more in the style of a rock fight than like a what do you call it, like a track meet, running up and down trying to score the most. I think UCLA can control the pace more and advance to the Big Ten semifinals. Now between Maryland and Illinois, and this would be my favorite matchup to watch if this bracket were to play out like this, just because this Illinois team seems to be getting hot and they have a lot of talent. I mean, the freshmen in Jaka Jonas and Will Riley are obviously very talented, but Kylan Boswell, he's been playing really good for them. Ivisic, or hopefully I said his name right. I think I did though. Stretches the floor as a stretch 5, and overall the team's just been playing really well to end the season. But Maryland, I think has also been playing really well. You basically the only loss they had recently was off like a three-quarter court buzzer beater to Michigan State, and again they definitely could have won. Derek Queen is a stud at the center position as a true freshman. Jacoby Gillespie is really good. They can shoot it. I like them a ton. And this game's actually really hard to pick. I do think Maryland, though, is more consistent in their shot making than Illinois. Like Illinois can certainly have a game where, because they're going to keep shooting. They're a volume 3-point team. And if they're shooting 30 to 33%, something like that, instead of upper 30s, the offense can really look like it's struggling. I mean, it would be struggling, but they're not gonna really stray too much from their strategy. And I think Maryland, I don't know Maryland's 3 point defense off the top of my head, but when I've watched them play, like a team like Michigan, they limited Michigan's 3 point shooting pretty well. And even Michigan State, they did a decent job. So I do think Illinois may have a hard time hitting a lot of their volume threes. And for that reason, I'm going to go with the Terrapins to advance. Along with, I will mention, I think Maryland's size on the inside, like Derek Queen, I would think would have a really big game against Illinois. They don't have a great interior defense. And then Michigan, Purdue. Talking about teams struggling down the stretch, Michigan needed a buzzer beater three from Burnett to beat Rutgers, a team at the 11 seed. They got pounded by Illinois. They got pounded by Michigan State. And it's just been kind of unraveling from a team that looked like they were going to win the conference, and it's just all falling apart down the stretch. And Purdue is a team I think matches up really well with them. I don't think anyone in the Big Ten guarded the Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden pick and roll, as well as this Kaufman Wren, Caleb First, Purdue front court. So I think that's an advantage Purdue has. And so I think they already match up fairly well with Michigan, who I think one of their biggest strengths is that they run the 2 7-footers, and there's a lot of things you can do with that. I think Purdue matches up well defending that. And I do think, even though Purdue hasn't been playing like elite, Michigan has just looked terrible recently. And I have to go with the Boilermakers. I'm rooting for Michigan, so I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, I think Purdue just looks so much better than Michigan right now. Not even because they look great, but Michigan just looks really, really bad. Like the wheels have fallen off there. Now we have our semifinal set: Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Purdue. And in the first matchup, I'm again going with the Spartans. It's really hard to pick against them right now, seeing what they've done to teams like Michigan, beating Maryland, beating Wisconsin, beating Purdue, like I mentioned. Yes, UCLA beat them in their one matchup, I believe by 2, but that was home court in UCLA. The Spartans, I think, are clearly the better team right now. Their bigs are playing better. And like Jace Richardson is playing like, out of his mind, maybe played himself into a lottery pick. Trey Holloman's really, really good. Jaden Akins has been good as a guard as well. The whole team is just playing a lot better, like a different level than the ball UCLA is playing. And UCLA is not bad, but Michigan State is playing at a different level right now. I got to go with them to advance to the final. And then between Maryland and Purdue, I think this would be a really hard fought game. The match like Braden Smith versus Jacoby Gillespie would be a lot of fun, as well as Derek Queen versus Kaufman Wren. I think this game would go down to the wire, but I do like Maryland here, just because I trust their like that starting five. I do think is better than Purdue's starting five. What they call it? The Crab Five, I think they call it. I think their starting five is more talented overall, have a little less depth, but so I think they may have to go heavy minutes in that starting five to win this game. But we do know that when you have these tournament style games, commercial breaks are longer. Like you get longer breaks in this style game that I think can help out Maryland to not run out of gas against Purdue. And like I said, I think it's really tight. I could be talked into Purdue, but I am going with Maryland, and I'm actually going to go with Maryland to win the whole Big Ten and beat Michigan State. I think that last game they played at home where they lost is going to motivate them, like like losing off a 3/4 court shot when you had the chance to hit the buzzer beater. I think they're going to come into this game really, really motivated. And Michigan State, I've been talking about how many teams they've beaten in a row. I do think at some point they're going to lose a game. Maybe that comes in the NCAA tournament, though. But yeah, I think Maryland already proved they can play with Michigan State. Michigan State has been the better team. They've been the hotter team. But Maryland is certainly capable of beating Michigan State. And I think will be super, super amped up for this game. A chance for the Big Ten crown, or like Big Ten tournament crown, and getting revenge for what was a heartbreaking loss. I think that's going to fuel them enough to where they can beat Michigan State and end what's been a great run for the Spartans. I really like this Maryland team in a tournament style bracket, and I'm going with them to win the Big Ten. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have Michigan State winning it, as that's probably, I would assume, the most popular choice? They've been the best team in the Big Ten. Or do you have someone else? Maybe you think Michigan bounces back, Purdue or Illinois makes a run, maybe UCLA, Indiana, Oregon. Leave it in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. There'll be a ton of college basketball content coming up for the tournament, throughout the tournament, so make sure to stay tuned. Until next time.